One of the most common objections raised against the Bible goes something like this. If the Israelites really wandered in the desert for 40 years, why haven't archaeologists found any evidence? Now at first, that sounds like a devastating critique, but when you examine it more closely, it begins to fall apart. Let me explain. First, this is a classic case of what's called an argument from silence. That means someone is saying, because we haven't found something, it must not have existed. But that's logically flawed. Just because you don't find your car keys in the first drawer you open, doesn't mean they don't exist. It just means you're probably looking in the wrong place or with the wrong expectations. Second, we need to ask, what kind of evidence would a nomadic people even leave behind in a desert over 3,000 years ago? The Israelites were not building cities. They were living in tents. They weren't carving inscriptions into stone. They were moving constantly, sustained by supernatural provision. And the Sinai desert is enormous, largely unexcavated and shaped by erosion, wind and sand that shift constantly. It's not exactly an ideal place to preserve the fragile remains of a temporary camp. Third, even Egypt's own military campaigns, which we know happened, left almost no archaeological traces in the desert. So if trained armies left nothing behind, why would we expect more from shepherds fleeing captivity? But here's what often gets overlooked. There actually is evidence that supports the bigger picture. There are records of Semitic slaves in Egypt. There are references to a people called the Habiru, who many scholars believe could be the Hebrews, and several cities in Canaan, like Hazor and Jericho, show signs of destruction that line up with the biblical conquest, depending on the chronology you use. So no, we haven't found a campsite with a sign saying Moses slept here, but we've found enough pieces to say the biblical account fits into the wider historical and cultural context of the ancient Near East. Lastly, and this is important, the wilderness wasn't meant to be a showcase. It was a test. God didn't ask Israel to build monuments. He asked them to trust him. The whole point was spiritual formation, not leaving behind ruins for modern tourists. So don't let the silence of archaeology silence your faith. The absence of expected evidence doesn't disprove the story. It simply reminds us that some of the most powerful things God does aren't always seen. For a deeper dive into this topic, watch the full teaching at youtube.com/@letgodbetrue-c2g.